Guys, on this tutorial, today we're going to teach you how to make a wonderful, delicious batch of beef jerky. Well, howdy folks. Welcome to Texas Cooking Today. I'm Stuart Trotter, your host. Today we're going to be preparing some wonderful, delicious food. And what you're watching here, this is one of my tutorials. So if you're looking for all of the answers and all of the details about this recipe, you found the right video. If you just need the recipe, watch the previous episode. That's what that is. And thank you very much for watching. Now, let's get into this. Now guys, that looks good, doesn't it? I'll tell you what, beef jerky isn't that tough to make, but there's a few things that you need to know about making it right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you what you really need to know about making a really good beef jerky. How long does it take to really marinate it? What kind of things taste good in a beef jerky marinade, and how do you put them together? So that's what we're going to get into. We're going to get into all of that, and you're going to find out that while this is fun and it's simple, there's a lot of options. Beef jerky is delicious, it's healthy, and guys, once you've tried this recipe, you may just be hooked for life. So I'll tell you what, let's get in the kitchen, let's get busy kicking up this wonderful, beautiful batch of beef jerky. Come on, let's go. All right guys, look at this. Wonderful, wholesome ingredients to use. This is not hard to make beef jerky. Frankly, it is simply drying, basically slow cooking the meat. We're going to have it at 165 to 175 degrees. So it's a long, slow process. But before we can get into the cooking, well, we need to flavor that meat a little bit. That's the neat thing about beef jerky. You can give it all kinds of flavors. You can do a teriyaki beef jerky, and that's really all it takes is just put it in teriyaki sauce for a few hours. All right, today we're going to be doing one that's got some soy sauce, liquid smoke, garlic, lemon. I have to think about my recipe for a minute there. You know, I've got a lot of recipes for marinating meat and a lot of beef jerky recipes. And this is sort of where my beef jerky recipes begin. This is sort of the baseline on beef jerky marinades. So guys, what we have here, some soy sauce, vinegar, liquid smoke, salt, lemon, black pepper, and some garlic. And we're going to turn that into delicious on that meat. So let's get busy. First, we need to cut this meat up, and there's a few tips and tricks I need to talk to you about in how to properly cut up a piece of meat for beef jerky. Believe it or not, guys, there is right and wrong when it comes to cutting meat for beef jerky. Alright guys, it's time for us to cut up our meat. I like to glove up for this, mostly because it just makes the job a little faster on cleanup. You're going to need a big bowl to put all this in to do your marinating in. Now when it comes time to cut up a cut of meat to turn into jerky, do I just go to hacking at it? Well, if you'll notice, this is several cuts all in one. Even though it's all chuck, there's different muscles here. Let me turn it over, you can see it easier. So you got a muscle here, you got a muscle here, one here, big old muscle here. And what I want to do is I want to separate these things out one from the other. And that'll make it a little easier for me to do my slicing, my cutting. And the other thing is, you'll notice there's some heavy bands of fat running through the inside. Well, I like some fat, what's called intermuscular fat, in my jerky. And that's this marbling you see here, these little thin stripes. That's what I want in my jerky. I don't want these big old honking clumps of fat that run in between the muscles. So I want to remove those. Just very gently sliding. There we go. Sometimes they'll start pulling apart on their own. So sometimes this is not too tough. There we go. And sometimes you'll get that, what they call silver skin, which just is connective tissue is all it is. Just go ahead, run your knife up under that and remove it, okay? Remember, choke up on your blade, pinch the blade with your thumb and first finger. Be careful with that knife, folks, and always cut away from you. Look at that. There's that primary muscle, the main one. that was in the center there, and that's all cleaned up. And so I'm just going to continue on. I'm going to go ahead and remove the rest of that fat. Alright guys, now as you see, I have my mussels separated. These have already been cut down into thinner pieces. I butterflied one of them, those little bitty ones. So there we have them. They're ready to go in my bowl, and that's where I'm going to put them. These, okay, I wanted to talk to you about cutting meat for jerky. Okay, let me show you something. If you'll look at this piece of meat closely, you can see the grains running this way right here, running diagonally. As you can see the tip of my knife, you can see the grains running very cleanly. Okay, so very easy to see there. Do not cut lengthwise along the grain like this, guys. If you do, your beef jerky is going to be really hard to chew. The problem is then you're having to gnaw through the meat because you're biting through across the grain. It's much easier to bite a piece of meat off when it doesn't have that long stringy quality to it. So in order to cut a good piece of jerky from something like this, what I have to do is to fix my meat so that it's cut across the grain. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to angle my knife a little bit to do it too. I want about 1/4 inch thick cuts on this, guys. So those are cut across the grain, and as a result they're going to be easy to bite, okay? And this one's the same thing. First thing I want to do is cut the tail off of this. There we go. Now you see the grain of the meat, very distinct. It's running like this. Makes this pretty easy, doesn't it? Again, we see that distinct grain on that meat. And I don't want to cut lengthwise along the grain. So cuts like this would be wrong on this piece. On this piece, I'm going to have to cut it like this, all right? Isn't that beautiful? And see the marbling in that meat, guys? Let me tell you something. If you want your jerky to be really good, having some fat in the meat is a good thing, all right? Don't be afraid of having a little bit of a fatty meat for jerky. Makes for good. Now, if you have a part of your jerky that's a little thicker than the other, like you've seen me do, use your hand, pound it down a little bit. It'll go flat, don't worry about it. There we go. Now, that one's ready to be marinated just like the rest. I'm just going to keep doing this. Now, those pieces are kind of big. To make this easier to handle, I want to cut it in half, and I want to make my strips of jerky just a little bit smaller. There it is, guys. Our beef jerky cutlets are all cut up. Beautiful thin slices of meat, about 1/4 inch thick, like I said. These are going to make some wonderful jerky. Now all we have to do is get our marinade in here and get it flavored up. Okay guys, when you're going to mix up a marinade, something I want to mention to you. You know these bottles, they come with those little dropper tops that they stick down into the neck of them. Well, it takes forever to work with it that way, so just go ahead and pry those out. You can use the edge of a knife to pull them out, and don't worry, they do snap back in there, so it's not a problem. I put them upside down on their own cap, and then when I screw the cap back on, it automatically pops that little thing in place. Generally, I think it's the way they do it at the factory. Alright, so I need to get busy fixing up my marinade that goes on that meat, and I might end up adding some water to bring it up over the top of the meat. So what I want to do, go ahead. I like to measure out my marinades just like I'm doing here. What's nice about this, guys, it allows you to measure everything into a single bowl. You just bring it up to the next measurement. Okay, that's all you have to do. So we've got my soy sauce in there. I've got the acid in there, part of it, which is my vinegar, and I have some liquid smoke in there for flavor. The soy sauce is also acidic. Now, acid's important, guys. It helps to tenderize that meat. You'll see some people will use meat tenderizer, and that's a chemical called bromelain. And if you want bromelain, all you have to do is just add pineapple to your marinade, and you've automatically got bromelain in it. That's where they get bromelain from, is from pineapple. All right, now next I'm going to be crushing the garlic to put in there. The lemon, I'm going to slice it and squeeze it in there. So all I have to do, and the salt I can put in there at any time, and I'll do that in just a moment. So at this point, I'm ready to just pour this on in there and we're ready to get it done. I'm going to go ahead and cut my lemon. There we go, get that out of the way. Now something I want to mention, your black pepper, guys. Don't put the black pepper in the marinade. And here's the reason why. Black pepper, what makes the flavor from it be imparted to your food is the fact that there's some oil in it. It's a spice, guys. So the oil in this spice is what we're going for. And if I put it into my marinade itself, it's going to get lost. The flavor will be lost. However, if I pepper the beef just before dehydrating it, but after marinating, all of the oils spread out across that beef from the peppercorns and I retain all of its flavor. So I do it that way. All right, now I want to get my marinade right down on that meat. There we go. Beautiful. The next thing, I want my lemon in there, guys. I'll squeeze all that lemon juice out into it. This is wonderful. It adds a extra acid which will help soften that meat, but at the same time it gives it a wonderful fruitiness to the marinade itself. Now what do you do with this part? It's easy. Throw it right in there. Now guys, about a teaspoon of salt. My garlic, going to get it down in there. All I have to do on that garlic is just crush it and throw it in. There we go, right in there. I'm going to top that off with just a little bit of water so that my meat is fully submerged. Now let's go ahead and stir it together. Guys, I like to use tongs when I'm doing this because I can pick up the meat and kind of move it around and redistribute the ingredients real well this way. Okay guys, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the refrigerator. I want to cover it, get it in the fridge, and I'm going to be turning my meat, stirring it a little bit about once every hour. This only needs to marinate for 2 to 3 hours. And I'll tell you what, here's the thing. When you're dealing with meat that's cut this thin, does not take long to marinate it. You don't need a 24-hour marinating process on this. If you give it that long, all it's going to do is end up eating away at your meat real bad because of all the extra acid in this. When the meat's this thin, your marinating gets really short, okay? So, now let's just get it down in refrigeration. Guys, we have our equipment ready to dehydrate our meat. Now that's how you make beef jerky, is you dehydrate the meat. Now generally this is done at about 165 to 175 degrees. Those are your optimum temperatures for doing beef jerky. Now in this case, I'm going to be using a food dehydrator. If you've got one of these, great. If you want one, go get one. They're really cheap. You don't have to spend a lot of money for one. No matter what anybody tells you, all it's doing is circulating air at a certain temperature across your food, period. Some people will say certain ones work faster. Well, maybe so. But who wants to spend $200 on something they could have got for $40? Now, another way of doing this, you can use pan racks like this. You can put them on a baking sheet. You can use your oven rack all by itself and put foil on the rack underneath it. Lay the meat out across the rack. Put your meat on these racks on the baking sheet if you wish. There's a lot of ways of doing this. You can even do this over a campfire, provided you keep the temperature low on it and very smoky. So guys, there's a lot of ways of doing this kind of thing. This is how we make jerky, all right? Now, I don't have a campfire. I couldn't make mine smoky that way, so we used liquid smoke. And we're going to use an electric dehydrator. I'll be doing this at 165 degrees, and like I said, it's going to take many hours. So what I need to do now is simply get my meat on the trays and then get it started. Oh, don't forget, ground pepper on that meat. Now guys, now that I have this all marinated up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this laid out on my trays. And I'm going to do all of the laying out of the meat first. Once I get my trays fully loaded, I will then place them back in place right here, and I'm going to pepper each and every one of them. And I'll use my pepper on a coarse setting. I'm going to do fresh ground pepper. Now when you're doing beef jerky, whether it's in the oven or if it's on a dehydrator like this, Make sure, guys, make sure that your meat isn't touching. You want there to be spaces in between all of your meat. Now, if you notice, I have a board underneath this specifically to catch the drips that I know are going to happen. Of course, you notice the meat has changed color. All right, that's normal. That's due to the liquid that we had it in. The soy sauce is a dark color, and the acid was also causing some cooking to go on there. So the marinade itself was actually doing some cooking on our meat. The browning that we see here, due to chemical cooking, is part of what they call a Maillard reaction. In part, not in full. So, and the other part of it is just that brown liquid we used. Now guys, I have set my pepper mill for a coarse grind, and I'm liberally coating one side of my meat, not both, just one. So I've got plenty of pepper on there, as you can see. And I'll do all of it that exact same way. Okay guys, I just got to get the power head on this. Now I'm going to explain to you how this thing works, just so you'll have some understanding of what's really going on here. You have these trays, as you've seen, that are perforated, that allows air through them. In the middle there's this open hole. On the edge there is about a 1/4 inch wide gap all the way around that connects from the top all the way down to the bottom. And what happens is the motor on this pulls air up the center, heats it, blows it down the side, and then it gets pushed up through this area here, because it goes right straight to the bottom and it's forced up to the top again, where part of it comes in through here and part comes up through the center. So you get this vortex of air, heated air going on, and it just slowly heats this and dries it until it's all finished up. Now just plug this in and we're up and cooking. Well guys, as you can see, it isn't really that complicated. We're just going to marinate that meat and put it in the dehydrator, and there it is. So now we're waiting on it to finish drying, and while it's drying, well, I guess enjoy life. It's going to be a number of hours. The fastest I've ever been able to dry meat was about 5 hours, and the longest took almost 18 hours. So it really just depends on the cut, the humidity, the temperature, actually, altitude. A lot of things come into play when it comes to drying that meat. Okay, so all you can do is simply be patient, and after about 4 hours, check it about every 2 to 3 hours. Okay, so that way it doesn't get too dry on you. Other than that, all we can do is sit and wait, and when it's finished, well, I'll show you that here in just a second. So, okay guys, let me give you your ingredients measurements now. We started with our beef. Now I have about 2.5 pounds of beef here, and this recipe is good for 2 to 3 pounds. And choose whatever kind of beef you want. Okay, you can choose a brisket. Today we're using chuck. Round works really well. All kinds of meats work good for this, but remember, some meats are tougher than others, and a little fat content in it is a good thing to have. On the ingredients, your soy sauce, 1/2 cup, 1/4 cup of vinegar, 1/4 cup of liquid smoke. Your flavor is the one that you want to go with. So if you like hickory, do that. I'm going to be using mesquite. I'm using 1 lemon, pepper to taste. I like mine heavily peppered. And 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt. I'll be using 1 teaspoon in mine. This, garlic. You can go 2 to 4 cloves of garlic in this. All you have to do is just crush them and throw them in. There it is, guys. All of your ingredients measurements. This is really, really good beef jerky. Well guys, we have come to the very end of all of this. I have packaged up my beef jerky in this bowl. It has been 13 hours, by the way. The beef that was once in this bowl, and I want to show you this first. This was the bowl that we used for our beef when I was marinating it. it was in this one. Now it fills this one to the same height, okay? So that'll give you some idea of the fluid loss that we had there. Beautiful, beautiful beef jerky, okay? Some nice looking stuff, guys. This beef jerky, once you've tried it, never said it was easy to chew. After all, it's jerky, right? That's good. Beefy, rich, full flavor. I just love chewing on this stuff. One of my favorite things when I'm traveling, I have to admit. So guys, I'll tell you what, try this recipe. You're really going to enjoy it. It's a good one. And remember, when you're working marinades for beef jerkies, don't use too many different flavors at once. You're going to confuse the palate. Keep it simple. Keep it light. Okay? This smoky, beefy, that wonderful soy flavor, and the pepper. My palate can easily discern those. Okay? If I added in a bunch of other flavors, paprika, cayenne, garlic, Worcestershire sauce, a lot of other things like that, no, it wouldn't really be the quality jerky that it is now. If I wanted to use Worcestershire sauce, I would use it, but I wouldn't use it with the stuff I used this time. I would do it a different way. So guys, keep your marinade simple for your beef jerky. You're going to have really good jerky if you do that. And remember, it's all about patience, and you will be well rewarded. So thank you very much. I do appreciate you watching this episode, this tutorial for Texas Cooking Today. And if you would, please subscribe, and you know, the other stuff. Put some notes down there for me. If you have a request, go ahead and put it down in the comments. If you have questions, I answer a lot of those, so go ahead and use that. Also, please click the like button and share my videos, guys. I do need your help, and I appreciate it. You folks have a good day. Bye-bye. Well, there it is, guys. Texas Cooking Today tutorial. Thank you very much for watching this show and for watching Texas Cooking Today. If you would, please go to my channel. Check out what I have there. There's some wonderful recipes and some great tutorials waiting for you to try. Again, thank you very much.